All right, so welcome to our fourth week in the 3MT training and challenge competition course. So this week we have the preliminary rounds, which we've all been waiting for. We continue to meet with your cohort. We'll talk a little bit about Kimmy and I and jumping into cohorts this week as well. This week is for you to refine and finalize your talk and slide. And then I have some reminders about the preliminary rounds of schedule. And it says send Kimmy slide and title. Well, she's going to pop into the chat where it is that you need to send things. But this is us preparing for the preliminary rounds, and the schedule, of course, is in your 3MT participant webpage and in the guide that you have. The rounds are on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 3 to 4:30. Depending on how many folks we have presenting on each day will determine how late we stay. It may be that the rounds go only till about 4 o'clock or so. That's possible too. But we will have judges who need to get acquainted. Some judges can do all 3 days and others are going to be new. So they have information in advance, but we will need to get them up to speed at the start. So it's also a great way for you to kind of get acquainted with the expectations for the judging process. We've talked about it in the past, but you'll get to hear and see from a judge's perspective. Practicing. That's what this week is about. And then we're going to talk specifically today about learning to breathe, and there should be an E there, from your gut, and how to pace your speech. We'll talk a little bit about that, and I've got some advice from a speech coach to share with you. Your preliminary round assignments, we have those. We haven't sent them out yet. We'll send them out after this meeting. There's a couple things that we just wanted to finalize. And those, it's again, the slides and title. Kimmy's going to pop those into the chat on where it is that you need to post those. But please post your slides and title by close of business, which is usually, 5 o'clock, but you have a little bit of breathing room, I suppose, if you need a little bit more time. But just certainly by the end of the day before your prelim. We need to have some time to put together the slide deck so that runs seamlessly behind the scenes. And so if you could get those to us a day in advance. We know that for those of you who will be presenting, for example, on Wednesday or Thursday, that's a little bit more breathing space for you, and you might continue to be revising after having met with your team. But if you're presenting tomorrow on Tuesday, just know that you'll be by the end of business today. If you could submit those slides and that title, that would be very helpful for us. All right, this is what the front slide looks like for, let's say, you're doing our preliminary rounds. This is from the kind of prep for this year for the slides will look like. But I wanted to let all of you know that your front slide, while you're being introduced before you start talking, will look like this. It'll have your title, if you want it to read. It'll have your name, and then it'll have, if you're a PhD candidate or master's student, what your department is. This is for everyone in the audience, including the judges, to be able to identify who you are and to be able to see your title in print. Again, you're working on titles that are accessible, good for a non-expert audience. My recommendation is to kind of imagine your title up on a slide that looks like this, and that might help you edit even and kind of refine your title and think about, like, what's the best way to represent your work if people have a front slide like this and it's going to be there for 30 seconds for someone to take a look at. And then Blair, I see you have a question. Schedule that was shared. Yep, we're going to share that out just as an FYI after this session. There's a couple things that Kimmy and I want to fine tune and just make sure, trying to get a balance between each day. There's fewer people who wanted and selected for obvious reasons to present on Tuesday, but some people did say that was okay. So we're just trying to make sure that we've got a good balance and want to review that one more time before we send it out. But this is what kind of the front slide looks like, and you can kind of get a sense of how your name and title might be working together. Also note that if you have an extended title, a very long title, that will take up a certain amount of space on this slide, and also that judges have to read through it on one of those screens that's in the Laurie Student Center. So just keeping all of that in mind for the framing and the presentation of your work. We're going to do final cohort, and your slide follows that, and then you start talking. We're going to do final cohort visits this week. I have jumped into a couple last week. I cannot meet with the first group that's meeting today. I have a presentation at lunchtime. So that group, if you're meeting today at noon or so, I won't be able to jump into yours, but there's a group that meets later in the afternoon, and I can meet with you then. And we have one more cohort to meet with after that. So if your cohort has not yet been visited by either Kimmy or me, please reach out and let's sort out and see if we can find a time to meet with you. There's another option too. If for some reason that we can't meet with you, I have set up some office hours to do quick 15-minute consultations. If I have already been able to consult with you at your cohort meeting, or you've gotten some one-on-one advice, that it please know that this time should be for folks who haven't yet gotten that time or advice. However, if you've already met with me and you'd like to meet with me again, just email me and we can see if we can find a time. But these are times that I've set up for folks. If you haven't yet met with me, or if you need some advice, please just sign up for a 15-minute session somewhere between Tuesday and Thursday. I'm happy to meet with you and have those conversations. And this week is really about showcasing you and your amazing work. It's also for us to be able to have fun. There's some pressure on the 3MT because you're presenting in front of people, right? Your work, that's always a little bit of a pressure, but it's also exciting. It's how often do you get to have people just pay attention to you, entirely you, and your work? Not very often. So I take advantage of it. We're going to have a great time this week. It's fun. The preliminary rounds are always exciting. Just a few notes on the importance of breathing and pacing your speech. I don't know, when I get excited, I speak rapidly and I speak at a higher pitch. It's not terribly engaging. What you want is to have a slower pace. And I love the voice coach, Jimmy Cannon. He's got this great presence. He's got great advice, and he's available on YouTube for free. And so I've brought one of his shorts in because he talks about the power of the pause. He also has some really good breath work videos as well. So if you're working on figuring out how to breathe and breathe from your gut in order to bring more presence to your presentations, more power to your voice, he's great for that. And so and his videos are pretty short. So you could find a couple short videos and just do some practice sessions with him. But I'm going to share this one with you. It's just a couple minutes, but it's how to stop rushing your words when speaking.
Do you rush through your words when you're nervous? Here's why the pause might be your biggest secret weapon. Most leaders I coach say the same thing. They speak too fast. Their ideas get lost and they end up sounding less confident than they really are. But here's the shift. The key isn't to talk more, it's to pause with intention. And when you pause, 3 things happen. Number 1 is that your audience actually has time to process what you just said. Number 2 is that you naturally slow down your speech so you sound clearer and more in control. And number 3, and that deeper breath you take in the silence calms down your nerves instantly. So instead of rushing, those pauses make people lean in. They see you as confident, thoughtful, and worth listening to. If you want to understand the real impact your voice has on other people, take my free quiz. The link is in the comments.
All right, so I'm not advertising for him, but I do think that it's worth taking a look. And then let's see, there's one more I thought I had included. Yep, here. I just want to showcase that he does have a page and a site on YouTube, And his shorts are good, but he does have some fuller length videos that are worth checking out if it's something that you're wanting to work on. And the 3MT competition and our preliminary rounds and working in your cohorts and getting feedback, these are really wonderful ways for you to get some low stakes, really supportive, good feedback and guidance for you to build some skills and work on some of the things that you've been wanting to work on. Public speaking is not something that we're born doing, right? It doesn't come naturally to all of us. And so it's really helpful for you to have some good feedback, some good support. And I think the guidance from people who are experts, I just love that we can find that easily accessible on places like YouTube. So I would recommend Jimmy Cannon as a voice coach. All right, so there was one more slide that I wanted to bring forward. And it's in part because we're thinking about what we do when we speak. And this goes back to ancient times. And, you know, in my field in literary criticism, much goes back to Aristotle and thinking about rhetoric and the nature of oration and what's the relationship between the orator, the speaker, or you when you're on the stage, the ideas that you're conveying and what you've structured out and the story that you're telling, and then your audience. And so this is an ancient art, what we're doing in some ways in the 3MT. There in Aristotelian terms, he spoke about ethos, logos, pathos, kairos. He spoke about any number of other things too. But basically, in your talk, if you're wondering if it's going to make sense to your audience, there's a kind of three-part piece to it: the introduction, the body, the conclusion, or the beginning, the middle, and the end. Or in Aristotle's terms, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And that comes through in a 3MT with the introduction. This is who I am. This is a little bit of background, right? And this is why this is important for us to understand these elements and these details of my work. And then this is why it's really significant and what I want you to take forward out of here. So again, that kind of repetition, but always in a new way, something that where you're just layering on additional guidance information. So I've been bouncing through the cohorts and been just so impressed with the work that I've seen and the stories that folks are telling right now. Just some things that are reminders that you are come across as trustworthy and credible in part because of the story that you're telling, that there's some sort of way that it is connected to your credibility as a researcher. So that's why your positionality is important, but also your presence is important. The logic that by which things are connected in the story that you're telling. If you only have 3 minutes, there's only so much you can do, right? But the whole story of that you share within those 3 minutes needs to be clear and connected. And then that pathos, that is emphasized more in a 3MT than it is probably in any other kind of research genre that you do, right? It's not emphasized so much in your articles for publication or in your scholarship and thesis and dissertation. But that emotion and telling an engaging story is front and center in the 3MT, in part because you want to engage with your audience first so that they can connect with your ideas after that. In scholarship, we tend to flip it. We tend to want people to connect with our logic, our ideas, the data. We always love the data, right? In part because we're speaking to expert audiences who also have a background knowledge capable of interpreting what we're giving them, but also who have a shared passion and interest for the very topics that we're talking about or writing about. That's less so in a 3MT and when you're talking to a general audience, which is what makes this communication training and work so valuable, is that you're working in connecting with them in ways that are meaningful. And I would say that when we talk about pathos and emotion, it may be that you want to bring forward something that is quite touching or emotional and will kind of catch folks. But if you do it in a way that seems too sly or too overt or like a sledgehammer where you're kind of hounding home your point about, I don't know, cancer treatments or other things that medical treatments are really big, right? It's easy to see people who are ill and garner sympathy. But if it feels too much, you'll actually lose interest, kind of credibility or trustworthiness with your audience because they'll see you as being someone who's like overstating the emotion. So you want this kind of balance between all of these. And It's the balance between these that will make your presentation come alive. So I thought I'd just share with you, you were not alone in speaking in front of people and getting a little nervous or whatever the things are, having to shape a story, trying to remember it. This is an ancient art, and so glad you're here. And this comes to us from George Saunders. He is a creative writer. He's at Syracuse University. He's won any number of national book awards, and he's just an amazing, amazing writer. So if you're not familiar with his work, he's a contemporary. And if you're looking for good American artists and writers to follow, he's a good one. He's a good egg. He teaches. He's a faculty member as well as a creative writer. But he gave an interview recently with the New York Times, and one of his kind of key points is that human contact is the only thing that matters. And this has gone viral, and I just want to amplify it as well, because he's talking about within the context, broadly within a certain type of socio-political context, but also in the era of the digital age. It's wonderful that you and I can meet on a Monday morning, and I don't have to really get out of my, pajamas in order to be able to talk with you this morning. But the human contact that we're talking about is really like being able to have a relationship and see people as people and connect with them with things that are valuable and meaningful. And I think we do that through the 3MT. We have the capacity to be able to share the things that we work on day in, day out, agonize over, spend, far too much time thinking about how we're going to use language with precision to be able to articulate to ourselves and to others the very nature and complexity of our work, but in an understandable terms. And we can often do that and get isolated in that process, and that forget that it's really because when we reach out, when we share our work, that becomes meaningful, and it's shared meaning about our work. So I just thought I'd amplify his idea of, human contact being the only thing that matters, in part because we can get so caught up in our ideas, right? As those mattering more. And it's really human contact and sharing our work. So I'm glad you're here to share your work. So this week we're going to get together and we're going to have the 3MT preliminaries. You, by the way, even if you're not presenting, you are more than welcome to come to all of the rounds. If you have a cohort colleague who is in a round that you are not in, feel free to come and support your cohort colleagues. It'll be good to have you. The room is big enough. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop the recording, and we'll open it up for a little bit of questions. Let's see. What button? That's the